Welcome to your Daily Dose of Sunday School, episode 140. We are looking at the seventh commandment, you shall not commit adultery, through question 71 of the Westminster Shorter Catechism, what is required in the seventh commandment? The seventh commandment requires the preservation of our own and our neighbor's chastity in heart, speech, and behavior. The proof text today, this is really solid proof text, one that you might have thought of when you think about this topic. Matthew 5:28. I'll start at verse 27. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So, Jesus has already said that not a jot will be wiped out from the law until all has been fulfilled. He's not come to abolish the law. At least he said it somewhere. I don't know if he's already said it. But, so he's not contradicting, you shall not commit adultery. He is comparing with what his hearers would perceive. They said, you shall not commit adultery. Okay, I think I can get through life without committing adultery. And he is applying it the way it ought to be applied, the way God intended it to be applied. That's the way this teaches us that the Ten Commandments were intended to be applied more broadly. That's why, think about the Psalms. The psalmist is meditating on the law of the Lord. Well, why do you need to meditate on God's law? That means you're thinking about God's law, and you're thinking hard. So not like Eastern mysticism where you try to empty your mind. This is you're thinking hard about God's law. Why would you need to think hard about God's law if it's just as simple as you shall not commit adultery? Those words at face value. That's what Jesus is dealing with. You're not applying the law until you have thought about the heart behind the law, and you've tried to live from that, from a heart that reflects God's heart towards marriage and faithfulness and sexual sin and those sorts of things. So, you want to take it down into the heart. And he says that if you look at a woman with lustful intent, you've already committed adultery with her in your heart. So you've sinned. And this is how we want to fight sins. We want to fight sins like Christians. There are certain sins that would embarrass anybody, especially maybe you've always been a good kid and then you get into this or that sin and then you're embarrassed. They'd embarrass you if you're a Christian. They'd embarrass you if you're a non-Christian. And if that's on the level you're fighting, I've got to stop doing this embarrassing thing. I've got to stop looking at this or that thing. I've got to stop doing this or that thing. Then you're fighting like a non-Christian. The Christian is fighting not just on that level, but down to the heart level, to where as your mind is going to a certain place, you don't want it to go there. If your mind is desiring somebody, you're not married to that person, then you're fighting that desire. If you're fighting on that level, then you're fighting as a Christian, and you're going to have much more success because you're really dealing with it at the root. So, fight at the heart level, and this is a constant battle. Ask for God's help when you sin. Confess your sins to God. Well, I shouldn't have thought that thought. I shouldn't have held on to that thought. I should not whatever, and rejoice in his mercy to you and seek to set your mind on what God has given you to pursue. And set your mind on God. Set your mind on his kingdom, his righteousness. That is how we want to fight sin as Christians.